Welcome to Ageless by Rescu. This podcast is devoted to exploring the science of rejuvenation, uncovering the most trusted experts, the must-have products, innovations, and technology in the field of vitality, aesthetics, new beauty, and cosmetic enhancement. Greg, welcome to Ageless by Rescu. What an honor to have one of my personal heroes in biotechnology appear on the Ageless by Rescu podcast.
Yeah, it's fantastic to be here, Bahar. Thanks for the opportunity to have a chat.
You know, when we were getting ready to record, we talked about your pathway to being a creator in the biotechnology space. And one of the reasons I was delighted to have you on the show is that, you know, you did the research and the studies and published your books first, and then went into the manufacturing side of things. So it wasn't a marketing-led pursuit. It was truly born from your passion, and in the intro, I explained, you know, what your background was. But I want to ask you, you know, longevity has been a topic that people are truly exploring, and we are living longer. What do you think is the most topical aspect of talking about longevity, lifespan, and health span?
Yeah, great question. And I think right now the really exciting work's being done on something called cellular reprogramming. And we can do this ourselves, but there are researchers out there that are looking to reprogram our cells and actually make them act younger. We have a little biological clock that ticks away in our cells. And it turns out that if you can actually turn that clock back and turn your cells age back as well, or how they act. So to me, that's the most exciting thing that's happening out there right now. And that's a wee way away from how that we can all access it. But right now you can actually reprogram your cells and do that by doing exercise, taking supplements, being mindful. Those sorts of things can actually affect your cells and make them act younger.
You know, life expectancy has dramatically increased since the 1900s. And I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on the challenges that this places on, you know, humanity, the medical system, and, you know, how we live our lives? Because, you know, we were talking before that in my view, the traditional medical system is largely broken. And we saw that during the pandemic, where there was such a shortage of hands on deck. And you know, most people that I speak to would have never had a consultation with their GP that's lasted longer than 30 minutes, unless they're a candidate for a heart attack or breast cancer. You never really get a functional consultation. What do you think this increased life expectancy, what are the real life pressures that it's going to have on society?
Yeah, so we've had an incredible increase in lifespan over the last 100 years, 200 years, and we've done that through better nutrition, through antibiotics and medicine and so on. But we really haven't transitioned out of that break fix sick care model, because that's really what it is. You go to your doctor.
What was it? I love that. Break.
It's like break fix, right? You don't go and see your doctor until something's broken, and then you go and get it sorted. And that's actually, we need to turn that around and actually go, how do we stay well? You know, we all spend a bunch of money on our cars, and we get them serviced every 6 months. And we do that because it's really expensive if they break, and it's dangerous if something goes wrong. So we need to think about that from our own health perspective and go, I want to go and make sure that everything's tracking well, and that's the first thing we do. So it's almost like preventative wellness, right? We actually just look at how do we keep things going well. If we keep going the way we're going, there's this quite a frightening statistic. By 2050, which is 25 years away or so, 22 billion of us are going to be over the age of 60, right? Which is crazy. It's about 25% of the population. You imagine what our healthcare system is going to look like if we all turn up like we are now, and it's going to put huge pressure on everything. It's going to be a big problem. So it's actually really urgent that we flip this break fix model of healthcare into preventative wellness and actually start right now, and not only not worry about it, or think about it in your 20s and 30s, because aging starts as soon as you're born. So if we can actually age better as we go along, then we will turn up in our 60s with the other 2 billion of us there in much better shape.
I think what's really interesting in the research that I've read, and certainly you address this in your book, is that there is a massive rise in preventable diseases. And the big ones, the big ticket items are diabetes, obesity, and heart disease. Can you share a little bit more about how, speaking further to what you were saying before, addressing these preventable big ticket diseases as the population is aging is going to really unlock health span to go along with lifespan?
Definitely. And we all got to think about these diseases as actually not just, turning up one day. They take decades to manifest. And it's really important that we start to consider our health and how well we're traveling through time as early as possible, so that we're actually in really good shape by the time we get older, and we can defer these diseases. And a lot of these diseases are syndromes of aging, right? Actually, it's relating to that. And if we solved cancer or we solved diabetes and individually, it might only add a couple of months to a year of life expectancy, because if that doesn't get you, the next thing does, right? So really what we've got to look at it as a perspective of how do we keep our cells as healthy and as working as well as possible for as long as possible. Because if we do that and we keep our biological age as young as possible, then we actually reduce the risk of getting some of these conditions later in life. And then there's just no time to start, better time to start than right now.
The other night, I was dancing around the living room to Taylor Swift and Harry Styles with my 12-year-old daughter. And we just decided to put on some music and dance around the house. And at one point, she looked at me, she goes, "Mom, you're like a 32-year-old. And I thought, you know what? I feel like a 28-year-old, but I'll take 32 because I'm really 49. And one of the things that you just said really, really strikes a chord with me. And it's actually the title of the podcast, is cellular wellness. So I have been hyper-focused in my own ageless journey to keep the eye on the prize of cellular wellness. I don't really get bogged down in all the other stuff, because what I want to do, because of what I've studied and what I hear as the most important thing, and you're saying it again, and I'm so pleased to have this discussion with you, is focus on your cellular wellness, focus on, preserving, reversing damage, enhancing the behavior of your cells. And one of the things, and we're going to talk about this, is, I am a massive fan of DNA testing. I've done 2 DNA tests in my life. I did 23andMe and I did DNA Power. And we're going to talk about a DNA test that you've created, which also gives you your biological age, which I'm super excited to try. But the reason I really believe in that is I like to have the baseline dashboard for my genetics.
Yeah, look, it's really exciting. And I can't take all the credit for inventing this test, but it's so exciting because you can now look inside your cells and look at something called your epigenetics. And so, your DNA test is kind of like your individual code, but outside that is the epigenetics. And this is the genes that are actually on or off, but hidden amongst all of that is a little clock, which actually ticks along and progresses as you age. And it's called your biological age or cellular age, and it's different than your chronological age. And I look at you and you absolutely look 28, yet 49. That tells me that your biological clock is actually much younger than your chronological clock. And what's really exciting about these biological clocks is that you can change them. You sit on the couch for too long and you perhaps drink some soda and you have some, a Western diet. That accelerates that clock. But when you do things like dance around with your 12-year-old and eat well and are mindful and certain other things like taking supplements, you can flip that biological clock right back and it could be even 10 to 20 years younger than your chronological age. And what gets exciting about all of that, of course, is that the younger your biological clock, it means your cells are acting younger, they're behaving younger, and your risk of some of those health conditions that people experience with older age is substantially diminished. And it's really the first time that we've been able to get that kind of data at that level in our cells. And what you measure, you can manage, right? So get a number and you can change it for the better.
I know that one of the leading luminaries in this conversation is Professor David Sinclair, an Australian scientist who's based out of Harvard, and he wrote best-selling book Lifespan: Why We Age and Why We Don't Have to. I refer to that book all the time. I have it as a physical book. I have it as an audio book. I've made my daughter listen to chapters in it because she's really interested in making sure that her parents and her grandparents live as long as possible. And we have a lot of conversations around wellness in our household. But the biological clock is something that Professor Sinclair speaks about a lot. And again, going back to the concept of cellular wellness, not the motherhood statement of wellness, but how are our cells behaving is really exciting. And what you're saying just makes me so happy because I've practiced on myself. I've tested this myself, and I've seen amazing results that have been tested in my blood tests, that have been tested in my DNA tests, that show up in my physicality. A conversation that I'd like to touch on is ageism and the cult of youth. And you touched on this in your book, and I think it's a really interesting conversation because I think the only question I've ever had around launching the podcast and the magazine and what I do, calling it Ageless, is, people say, are you scared of aging? Are you, age phobic? And it's like, actually, no, the exact opposite. But I'm curious from your kind of scientific perspective and research, what are your thoughts around this?
Yeah, I see ageism everywhere, and it's something that we're all guilty of, and it's quite unconscious. But it's something we just need to edit out of our conversations. We're moving into a time where we're all going to live significantly longer. We need to address what that means in the workplace. We need to address what it means when you go see the doctor. There's so many areas where we need to approach this from not so much how old you are, but how well you are, and what's your state of mind, and so on. So I think it's a dirty word, and certainly it's going to be really difficult to get it out. And what I also find fascinating about it is that we all experience it. So no one escapes this the ageism, and so really, if we sort of think about it from that perspective, the sooner we can all work on editing it out of the conversation and not treating anybody differently depending on their age.
There's a lot of bon mots and that people say 40 is the new 20. We kind of extrapolate on these themes, but we're headed that way. Like 80 will be the new 60. Like we are really 5 years away from that, 10 years away from that?
I'd say 10 to 15 years, and 80 could be the next 40. I mean, it looks like what we can do is literally reprogram ourselves. So we might, what that means is we might get to 40 or 50 and go in for a little treatment, like a little, dry clean or a car wash in the cell, so to speak, and turn back up at 40. And our cells are absolutely acting like someone in their 40s. And we might rinse and repeat that for as long as we like. It could be that you get to 50 and go in, turn 40 again, and just keep going. So these
gosh, I'd love to go to that special dry cleaning place, wherever that is. Sign me up.
It's coming, and it's actually Dr. Sinclair that's doing a lot of work in this area, and other researchers I've seen that have reversed skin cells from 50 to 20. I believe some of the work that Dr. Sinclair is doing is taking mice that are equivalent of 60 and taking them back to 40. So these are tests that are not science fiction. It's actually happening. Of course, it's going to take a little while to translate into how we make that happen for humans, but just the fact that they can do it in other animals is mind-blowing, and it means that there is a pathway for us.
You know, I went and visited one of the laboratories of Life Biosciences here in Sydney, and Dr. Lindsay Wu is heading up that team, and they were the team that reversed blindness in mice, and that was published in Nature magazine as a complete breakthrough. And when I did the laboratory visit, which was mind-blowing, what they were working on is reversing the age of the reproductive organs of mice. And they're working on something that's going to be potentially an alternative to assisted fertility, which will be delivered by 3 supplement intakes. And they're quite a long way in their research and testing. And it's here. It's just being refined. And I wonder, do you have any thoughts on stem cell regeneration as part of this conversation, the non-supplemental way to kind of reverse the age and increase the wellness of cells?
Yeah, I mean, stem cells are the cells that can convert into any cell in our body, essentially. And we have pools of stem cells all around our body that, and as we get older, they get tired and they run out. And it turns out that you can stimulate them naturally. One is through fasting, and that actually helps to regenerate your stem cells. But also in the clinic, the doctors are working out how to deliver stem cells to your body, and this has quite a rejuvenative effect. I was at a
You think that's going to be the drive-in that we go to get like a stem cell reboot?
Yeah, look, well, actually, what you'll get a reboot of every cell in your body. That's going to be the treatment. But I spoke with a chap at a conference a couple of weeks ago, and what he's doing is he's got stem cells, and that stem cells release a whole lot of factors that go around the body. And what he's doing is actually collecting those factors. And so you will in the future get an injection, which will have a very rejuvenative effect. So you're sort of bypassing the stem cells, but getting the stem cell juice, if you will.
Wow.
And that could be one of the steps as well that we have. There's just so many different elements that scientists are working on right now, which all show huge potential, and that's just one of them.
Now, you talk about MTOR being the master switch in your body. Can you explain to me what this is and how this is going to affect our course for cellular wellness?
Yeah, so MTOR or mTOR is a little protein in our body that is called a nutrient sensing protein. So what it does is when you eat and you have some protein, like a steak or I don't know, pea protein, whatever, it actually senses that you've got some protein in your body, and it turns on switches to build tissue, so build muscle or so on. But the opposite happens when you fast or spend some time not eating. That mTOR switch gets turned off, and when it gets turned off, different pathways get activated in your body. And a really good example of the benefits of it is when you calorie restrict, right? You have less calories than you would typically have, and people that do that actually are younger. So calorie restriction is the one intervention that you can do that actually slows aging in every single animal that's ever been tested on. mTOR is part of that equation, and so when you turn it off, what it does is it gets energy and nutrients from the cells that aren't working so well in your body, some of the older tired cells, and so it gives your body the opportunity and triggers something called autophagy, which is actually the breakdown and use of our cells that aren't working so well. And it's across all mammals, and we think it's there because there might have been times when we didn't get to have food for 4 or 5 days or a week, and we needed to find a way to get through that and survive and make it through to when we got food again. And so that switch, which gets turned off when we don't eat, helps the body survive, and turns out helps the body live longer. And of course, when we get to the food, it gets switched on again, and all those stem cells fire up into action and replace all of those cells, and you get this beautiful replenishment that occurs. So it's a really healthy thing to do, and it's actually one of the reasons we have so many metabolic diseases these days, is because we're eating all the time. We're not missing something. We're having a snack at midday and a snack at afternoon and a snack before bed. Our body never gets to turn that switch off, and that causes problems. So mTOR is fundamentally important. It's really important when it switches on because we're growing tissue, but really important that we give it time to turn off as well.
I've been fasting for 2 years, so I do intermittent fasting, and it is the single best health hack that I have discovered for my body. It stripped off excess fat. It gave me energy. It was incredible for my hormones in a post-perimenopause state. It improved my sleep, my focus, and I don't miss not fasting at all. I fast every single day. It's like breathing to me now. And I started slowly because it was a very different way for me to live. So the first few weeks of fasting, I would stop eating at 8 and then push breakfast out till say 9 or 10. Then I'd do that for a couple of weeks, then do 11, then 12, then 1. And now I can comfortably fast until about 2 p.m. before I see any kind of blood sugar drop. And it's really worked for me. And I've studied it a lot, and I've had blood tests before and after, and a hormone test before and after periods of fasting. And the results have been incredible for me. But again, I always say, you do have to be under some medical supervision if you're going to change your diet or supplementation dramatically.
Definitely. And it's a wee bit like when you first start running or doing some sort of exercise, it's a wee bit difficult at the start, but after a wee while, it becomes really, really natural. And we've all got energy stores in our bodies and in fat and stored in our liver, etc. And so what's neat about fasting is you get metabolic flexibility because you can get energy from sugar or from fat, right? So the body prefers sugar because it's easier, but once you actually train yourself, it switches to fat burning super easily and really quickly. And the important thing with fasting is that you've got to, you don't want to restrict your nutrition, because obviously it's really important you get, your vitamins and minerals from food. But if you can use fasting to perhaps do a little bit of calorie restriction, not a lot, you don't need much, but maybe 10%, and skipping a meal will do that for you, then you are flipping your body into longevity mode, and that's really good for your health.
One of the things that I did notice about fasting was some muscle density loss. And that's kind of the first product I tried from your brand, which is a supplement that you take that works really well in redensifying your muscles and making your workouts work smarter. I'm going to get to that, but do you agree that that can be a byproduct of fasting?
Yeah, definitely. So you want to be, when you're fasting, and definitely talk to your doctor or your dietitian, but need to make sure that you're taking adequate protein so that you don't lose muscle mass, because muscle is actually a really important organ. It's metabolically active. The more you've got, the higher your metabolic rate, which just means that you're literally burning calories as you move with decent muscle. And so it's important to maintain it. And there is this thing called sarcopenia, which is the muscle loss as we age. It's a thing that we all deal with, probably 50 and beyond. And it's a really important health metric that we maintain our muscle mass. So certainly this is why fasting needs to be quite conscious and talk with experts so that you can make sure it's working correctly for you.
Yes, so I've definitely fine-tuned the protocol for myself, and I found that works better. I want to go back to the conversation about chronological aging and biological aging, and I'd love you to kind of just recap on the definitions and then talk to me about your DNAage test that you've developed and why it's different.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, we've got two ages. We've got our chronological age, which is the age you celebrate each time you have your birthday, and then you have a biological age, and that can be radically different. It can be older than your chronological age. It can be younger, and it really defines what age your cells are acting. Right. So you can be 50 and have your cells acting like someone in their 30s, or like I said, in your 70s. And what's so exciting now is that these very clever people have worked out how to measure your biological clock. And it's really a leading indicator of how well you're traveling through time, right? How well you're doing and all the things that you're doing to be healthy, how well they're working. So what we can, with our DNA tests, can do is give you your biological age. So just to get an insight into how well your cells are acting. And that's an important number because they can be different. Say your twin had a rock and roll lifestyle and lived a pretty, I guess a rock and roll lifestyle. That would typically is associated with perhaps a bit of damage to your cells, and it ages you faster, right? So your twin who had a party, decade in their 30s will naturally have an older biological age to you. But the other thing that we can give you is something called pace of aging. And pace of aging is how well you're doing right now.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And you know how you measure your HbA1c, which is your blood sugar over 3 months. This is giving you what's happening right now inside your cells. And so your rock and roll lifestyle sister could actually have a lower pace of aging than you because she's turned her life around and she's doing things which are actually slowing things down. So it's a really, really interesting number. And so my number is 0.82, which means that for my pace of aging, I'm getting 2 free months a year sort of thing in terms of my aging trajectory.
So that's your Benjamin Button number.
Yeah, that's it, right. And we recently were talking to a journalist in New Zealand. Her number came back at 0.71. So it's like, you can get a really, really good number. And then what it does is it tells you right now all the things that you're doing, whether they're working or not. But the other thing, which is really interesting, is that you can get above 1, right? So you can get a 1.2 score.
That's the score you don't.
Yeah. But what's interesting with that one is it gives you a health risk, right? If you're under 1, you've got about a 50% less chance of having a serious health condition over the next 7 years compared to someone who's above 1. So you're right there, and then you can see how you're doing. And if it's not working so well, make some changes and then test again in 6 months, and and just course correct. And it's almost like a window into how well you are traveling.
So does your DNA age test give you also a background and a breakdown of your predisposition to major diseases?
No, so we're not looking at the actual genes that you've got. What we're looking at is the information around your genes, which are telling us essentially there are patterns of something called methyl groups. These are little chemical switches on our DNA, and it turns out as we age, they shift in very in patterns, and whatever pattern you have actually is associated with how well you're aging from a biological perspective. It's almost like a clock that's ticking away on our DNA.
And again, Professor Sinclair talks about this all the time: measuring, understanding your biological clock, understanding your chronological versus biological aging. And I think that the conversation is so interesting, and would you believe it's a test I've never had? Right. So I'm going to add that to my test because I am a massive fan of understanding my own health dashboard. It's been the single biggest motivator and driver for me, and it gives me a great reward system. It's like the gold star when you see some of those metrics improve. There's nothing more motivating than to see those health markers improve, and certainly bring down my biological age would light me up like a Christmas tree.
Yeah. Well, I'd say you're looking pretty good. And what I was excited to hear is not that your daughter needs to do the test, but that you're having this conversation and she's thinking about it, because we start aging from the day we're born. And the real opportunity, I think, is this next generation coming through who are going to be able to develop the habits that are associated with slowing biological age much earlier than the rest of us. And so that's going to mean that they, your daughter may look like you do when she's 70, because she's had advanced access to all of this knowledge. And so, the next generation is going to age completely different to the rest of us.
I mean, definitely I am. My mum is a beautiful woman, but she's never really looked after her health. It's never been a priority. She hasn't exercised. She was just genetically blessed with great skin, a great figure, a great brain. And but now, since turning 70, some of that neglectfulness is catching up. And I think about, when she was my age, and I think, my goodness, I am living so differently to how she was. And we're not, she was 19 or 20 when she had me. So our age gap is quite small. But I look at her and I think, do I want to have those issues in 20 years? Definitely not, because I don't feel I'm anywhere near ready to have some of those health concerns. And definitely, I hope that Lily is going to be ahead of the curve from me as well. Let's talk about, since we're talking about lifestyle, what are some of the lifestyle supplement changes that are worth investing from your research in working with reducing our biological age and preventing the big ticket diseases?
Well, the first thing is that base layer of you can't out supplement poor lifestyle and a poor diet. So get those right is just the first thing you can do. And it really is, you just need to Google Mediterranean diet, which is one of the more accessible and best longevity diets that are out there. And get outside and move those bodies. We are modern humans, but we've got ancient biology, and for the longest time, we've been chasing our food and running around and being active, and we need to do that. It just turns on. It's almost like the best pharmaceutical intervention you could do, and it's not a pharmaceutical intervention, but it actually just triggers all these longevity pathways and circuits, and is so good for us. Minimize sugar and those sorts of things, because these are, again, elements of our diet. They're inflammatory, and we're just not used to it. I think it was maybe a teaspoon of sugar a week, or it might have been 5 teaspoons a week, or something that we are used to, and that it suits our bodies. And we're doing that in every mouthful, just about. It's just so bad for us and so aging. So the next thing is to look at what are the latest technology and understandings around cellular aging. And there are certain enzymes that deplete as we age, and they have an impact on our cells. The most exciting ingredient that I've found, or molecule, is something called hobamine. Hobamine is a...
could you spell that? Or
yeah, I can, yes. It's Hobamine, hobamine.
Hobamine.
Yeah, and it comes from Himalayan Tartary buckwheat, which is a food source near the Himalayas. And what it does is it prevents the downstream damage from oxidative stress. So we all get a little bit of oxidative stress from time to time, and it's okay, because we can get it back into balance generally. But what happens when we have a high level of oxidative stress is that it damages our cell membranes, and those membranes go and actually form bonds with our DNA and our proteins, and it causes problems. And hobamine is the first molecule to date that actually sort of is a firewall against that particular problem. And
so does it behave differently to something, say, like resveratrol, which has been wildly touted as the best antioxidant?
Yeah, so this is a non-antioxidant because you've got your free radicals and in a Goldilocks zone, right? You don't want too many, because that's oxidative stress. But if you have too few, that's a problem as well, because you need free radicals, because your body uses it to signal around the body. And a good example of that is when you do exercise, there's a bit of oxidative stress that happens in your muscles, and it triggers the building of more muscle, which is good. If you have too many antioxidants, it stops that communication process going through. So it doesn't mean to stop taking resveratrol, for example, because that works in a slightly different way. But what's neat about hobamine is that it stops the damage without interfering with that free radical process. And it's an exciting molecule, and there's huge amount of research that's going into it right now. And it should be in our water because it essentially slows the damage associated with time that's occurring in our bodies. And the best way to describe it is sunscreen for your cells, right? I mean, you put sunscreen on because it stops the DNA damage from the UV rays. Well, you take hobamine and it helps reduce the DNA damage from living. And it's an exciting molecule.
Is that what you have in your cell 1, cell 2, cell 3 supplements?
We have it in our cell 1 supplement, and that's designed for people in their 20s, because you don't need any extra help really in your 20s. You just need to look after your DNA, keep the repair processes that occur in your DNA working as well as possible. And it literally is like sunscreen for your cells. It's just about how do we slow the aging process, and how do we support your DNA being as good as possible, because David Sinclair's work has shown that actually DNA is the driver of aging. And so if we can keep it looking good for as long as possible, then that's what we should do. The other exciting molecule is what David talks about as well, Dr. Sinclair, and that is NAD. So he talks about NMN a lot. NMN is a way to boost levels of this molecule called NAD in our cells. You'll know all about it, I'm sure, but it's essentially...
I do, but you know what? I could hear about it again and again. And I have to tell you, in full transparency, even I get confused between NAD supplements and NMN supplements. You know, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Should I be taking NMN or NAD plus?
Yeah. So you're going to boost this really important molecule called NAD with both of those, right? And this compound drops precipitously in our cells from the age of 40. It's like it's quite significant, and it's actually the second most prevalent molecule in our body after water. That's how important it is for our cells, and it's involved in 500 different chemical processes in our cells. It's involved in protecting our DNA. It's involved in creating energy in our cells, and it's just a super important molecule. And it actually also modulates our microbiome, like the bugs in our gut. And they think that the reason that we have changes to many of these parts of our cells, less energy, our microbiome changes, is because of the NAD levels declining with age. And so it's a really important molecule, and that's in our cell 2 product, and you don't need to take that until your mid-30s, because it's really targeting the mitochondria, which are your cellular batteries, and they work beautifully up until your mid-30s. And then the other things we're looking to do is a molecule called fisetin, and it's something that comes from strawberries and some plants, and it's involved in reducing senescent cells, which are the zombie cells that start to build up in our body and cause inflammation and disease. And you really don't need to address that until your 50s.
So I'm 49. Am I a candidate for the cell 2 product or the cell 3 product?
I would take cell 1, 2, and 3, right?
So 1, 2, and 3. Okay.
Yeah. So that's what makes our system, if you will, or protocol a little bit different. We say take cell 1 in your 20s forever. Then when you're in your mid-30s, add in cell 2 and
you add it in. So it's not only for people in their 20s. That's what I was trying to get at. Because I didn't want to be left out. I still feel 20.
No, look, it's a really interesting molecule. And if anybody likes doing research, you can jump onto PubMed and type in hobamine, and you'll just start to get all the really interesting research that's happening on that for that particular molecule. And then your 50s, that's when we do have this issue with these zombie cells. And so that's what we've designed this formula for, is to help you stimulate autophagy, reduce the burden of cellular senescence, and that just helps lower some of the things in our bodies that accelerate aging.
Now, you went a step ahead and you had all of your cell products clinically tested, which is not something a lot of supplement companies will do. What they'll do, just for anyone listening, is they will cite the clinical research of some of the ingredients, but not the actual they won't actually do clinical tests on the formulated product with the multiple ingredients. But you went to the expense, and I'm sure the enormous headache of doing clinical trials and clinical tests that were published on your cell range.
Yeah, that's right. So if I go back to my book, and I created the book based on a paper called The Hallmarks of Aging, and there back 3 years ago there were 9 hallmarks of aging, and these are hallmarks of aging are things that in our cells that drive aging, and really when I saw that as a pharmacist, I thought, that's not just 9 hallmarks, that's 9 targets that we could seek to look at whether we can actually modulate aging. And so you're absolutely right. It's easy to look at it in paper, but it's really much harder to make sure that it's actually happening. And so that's what we did. We did we started with an observational trial, and what we did was we got a group of 50 people, and we gave them either placebo or our system. And we measured it over 6 months, and we saw a reversal in biological age over that time. So that's given us the confidence now to go into a full clinical trial, and that's what we're doing in America right now. And we're not only just testing the system, but we also have developed a protocol around it, which is about how do we eat better, how do we exercise, what does that look like when in combination with our formula. So we'll get data on that in the next 3 months or so, and this will just give us a published look at exactly what we're doing at a cellular level. And I think consumers deserve that, right? We've gone from hope in a bottle to getting so much great science around the supplements that we've got access to. And meanwhile, of course, drug companies are working at the other end, building pharmaceuticals, which are going to do something similar as well. And so we're really giving people access to some of this tech, and it might not be quite as effective as the pharmaceutical version, but you can start now, and then when those pharmaceuticals show up, then your body and your cells are as in good a shape as possible.
Speaking of pharmaceuticals versus supplements, I know that there's been a huge amount of buzz around NMN, and there's been a shortage because they're going to class NMN as a drug. And I mean, from my side, I know how powerful NMN is. And certainly, the laboratory visit that I talked to you about before, that was the major proponent of the clinical trials that they were doing, is on the dosage of high quality NMN to truly reverse aging. So I'm wondering if you could share your insight around, first of all, let's talk about NMN, because your company also produces an NMN product. And I'm wondering how you went about formulating the potency of that product, how it fits in with the other protocols that we've been talking about, and what you think about the drug version of NMN.
Yeah, definitely. It's I just love the molecule. I think it's a wonderful molecule, and it's something which just we can all benefit from. And there's just so much data showing that it has benefits for cellular health. I'm a little disappointed with the FDA's decision, because I think it's going to create barriers to access to this molecule, and it's probably going to put the price up, which is something which is disappointing. But regardless of that, it is for outside of America, it's an accessible molecule, and we should absolutely all take it.
So I wanted to know in what dosage did you decide to create your NMN product, and so that it would be effective, and how it works in concert with the other protocols that you've developed?
Okay, yeah, such a good question, because a lot of people just take pure NMN, and that's all good, but I liken it to, you've got a motor in your car, and if your motor in your car is a little bit old or it's not got great oil in it, if you put high-powered fuel into it, it can cause some problems. So what we did when we formulated Cell 2 was to include a really interesting molecule called astaxanthin. Are you familiar with that?
I am not.
It's a really interesting antioxidant that comes from algae or algae. I've been in America lately, and no one knows what I'm talking about with algae. But so yeah, algae is or algae. They have cell walls exactly the same as we do in our cells, and their sunscreen to prevent damage from like the UV rays almost is this particular antioxidant, and it sits perfectly in the cell membrane. So
yes, I have heard about this.
Yeah.
Yes.
So when you take it orally, it goes into not only your cell membranes, but also your mitochondrial membrane. And that's where, so it's almost like you've got an engine. What we did when we put astaxanthin is we put good oil in the motor, and then we put NMN in as well. And that it just means your mitochondria is working really, really well in terms of the amount of the fuel that you're putting into it, and also the lubrication, so to speak. And then we also added something called pterostilbene, which is a molecule relating to resveratrol. It's a relative, and it's just more bioavailable. And pterostilbene is there to support enzymes or proteins that look after your DNA. They're called sirtuins. And those sirtuins get a boost, but sirtuins need NAD to work properly. So what we're doing is just making sure all of that is balanced and working well in your cells. And that's the difference between pure NMN, which is still great, but the formulation we've got in Cell 2 is a little bit more sophisticated, and again, working right down at that mitochondrial level.
But you also produce a pure NMN product.
Yes. Yep.
And I'm wondering how you would take that as additional supplementation, or do you go either or?
I actually, it's either or, and it's a lot to do with budget, really. Just the straight NMN product we've
Thank
bought
you
out.
for being so candid. I really appreciate it, because
Yep.
you know what? There's not a lot of straight talk out there when it comes to supplements.
Yeah. So that's what it's about, really. Like it's a great molecule on its own, but we've formulated it to do, specifically for another function, which is around cellular health and DNA care, if you will. So you choose which one suits your budget.
So if I was to take just NMN and not the Cell 1, 2, and 3 protocol, what would be some of the benefits of adding NMN to my stack?
Yeah, so
I love NMN.
Yeah, it's me too. So it's going to do a bunch of things. It helps with your microbiome, so it just helps regulate that. Our microbiome changes as we age, and for the negative, so it helps with regulate that. It helps with energy, and it helps with DNA repair, and it just helps with all these other 500 different biological reactions that happen in our cells. So it's really worthwhile just taking on its own. The other thing we did was in Cell 3 was we added something called apigenin or apigenin. And apigenin is a really interesting molecule because it interferes with an enzyme which breaks down NMN. And you get more of that when you're older and when you're overweight. So what we've looked to do is when you take Cell 1 and Cell 2 and Cell 3 is that we're getting more NMN into the cell, but we're also shutting the back door and stopping that enzyme from chewing up the NAD. And because if you're over the age of 50 and perhaps you're a little bit overweight, this enzyme which eats NMN, its levels increase. And so you might be putting NMN in, but that enzyme is actually chewing it all up before you actually get the real benefit of it. So putting those two molecules together, especially in your 50s or if you're a little bit overweight, is quite important.
Well, I guess this is why it's brilliant that you're not only a researcher, but you're also a pharmacologist. So you really understand that dance between the molecules and understanding how downstream you need to be thinking about how they interact with one another. And I guess that's, I want to go back to the supplement that I was introduced to, which is your MSC1, because as I was saying to you, I was noticing muscle deterioration as a result of aging, as a result of fasting. I was exercising a lot, and I do exercise a lot, but that muscular tone was not where I wanted it to be. And for me, having that muscle strength and tone is a really key hallmark of aging well. I don't want to be skinny. I want to be toned. I want to be strong.
Yeah, and it's just so important for your health. As we age, we lose muscle, and it's a leading cause of falls, of injuries. If you get sick, you don't have reserves. There's all sorts of benefits for keeping healthy muscle. So really important to have good levels of protein intake. And what we've done is we've worked with a company who's actually used this molecule for the last 20 years in the healthcare, in the hospital setting. And it was developed because people who are bedridden, like their muscle wastes away. And so what they used it for was to actually stop that muscle wasting or slow it down. And so for people like you and me who take it, it just means that we can maintain our muscle mass a whole bunch easier. But it comes with 20, 25 years of research. And the reason we've been fortunate to access it is that it just came off of patent. And so we've looked at it and gone, okay, how do we adapt that beyond just muscle wasting in hospital, but how do we get the benefit of it? And it's a really clever metabolite, which slows muscle wasting and makes it much easier to build muscle cells or muscle density.
So is it like a pre-workout? Would you take it as a pre-workout?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And it's and what we did was we looked at it because it's not just muscle wasting that we deal with as we age, but we also have body composition changes, right? We put a little bit of extra weight on and we lose a little muscle. So what we did was we combined HMB, which is this molecule which supports healthy muscle, with a ketone called BHB, which is also really interesting because it helps to support the body to I guess burn a little extra fat. It's one of these.
It's like a metabolic booster as well.
It is. Yeah, that's right. It's just it's exactly that. It just helps the body shift to fat burning mode, if you will. And so the two of those, plus another really interesting molecule called AKG, which is so many lots of 3-letter acronyms. Yeah. But again, what they work is synergistically to help us like tone our body essentially. And so
men would love this product too, right? 100%. Everything we're talking about, men and women.
Yep, you bet. Yeah, and it's just it's a neat way to potentiate all that work we're doing in the gym. And
that's a good word, potentiate. Yes, I like that.
Yeah.
So with the MSC1, is there a better time than others to take it? It just for anyone who's listening or watching, it's a little sachet. You mix it with water. It tastes kind of lemony, super pleasant. And I've been taking it at night because I fast in the morning. Am I taking it right?
Yeah, I mean, you can take it in the morning or nighttime. I probably would take it in the morning just so that you get the benefit from the exercise, like
Okay.
Yep.
Are there calories in it that would break my fast? Should I wait till after my fast period?
No, in fact, it actually helps with your fast. So what some people are finding is that they don't feel hungry when they've had it. So it's because the ketones in there, it actually supports the feeling of the lack of hunger, if you will. So I have it with my with my breakfast, or if I'm not having breakfast, I just take it as a morning drink and use that to wash down my supplements and so on. And it just, it's just a really, really interesting formula.
When you were talking about muscle atrophy and being in hospital, no one gave this to me because I was hospitalized for 7 weeks before I gave birth to my daughter. I had placenta previa. Okay. So I was on my back as a 36-year-old for 7 weeks. And I can tell you firsthand, I could not walk from 7 weeks of being bedridden. I had to completely rehabilitate my legs, and I had an emergency Caesar. So I was cut open at the tummy and I had complete muscle atrophy of my legs, and I had to take a baby home. And it took a long time. I mean, I had a lot of personal training and I was taking protein powders and supplements, but at no time did someone say, hey, here is a patented supplement that you can take that's going to help with the deterioration of your muscles while you lay up for 7 weeks. I had absolutely no support there.
Yeah, no, it's and they may have because they may have not talked with you about it purely just because you're pregnant and like
Maybe,
you don't.
yeah.
Maybe, but certainly if you found yourself in that situation again, 100%, this is such an important molecule to keep your muscles and as best working order as possible.
I want to ask you a question, and this is kind of a selfish question, but how long do you think we need to give supplements before we can really see a result?
I want to say 3 months, and that's because there are ones that you feel immediately, no doubt about it. You get a boost in energy with NMN, etc. But we're all this comes back to that question where we started around preventative wellness. Like we actually want to keep ourselves in the best working order for as long as possible, and it's really important that we do that. And so I would be supplementing from our 20s and 30s, purely so that you are delivering the right vitamins and minerals and molecules to your cells that keep them in great working order for and I think this is what's neat about this generation coming through, is that they're going to get access to that.
Oh, definitely. And, there's a lot of work in supplements instead of HRT for perimenopause and menopause. There's a lot of, there's a whole explosion in the area of treating, periods and the fluctuations of hormones during your reproductive years. That starts at 12, 13. So I think that there is going to be a huge amount of work that's done on correct and safe supplementation for all ages.
Yeah, it's really, I was at a conference last year, and they talked about the amount of research that's gone into women's health compared to like just men's health, if you will. And it's just absolutely appalling. So the really exciting thing is that's shifting so quickly now, and there are billions of dollars going into how to support women's health with all of the different, ages and stages. And so it's exciting, and it's not just about supplements. It's the femtech, it's the apps and so on. So I think it's even just down to the fact the amount of research that's gone into endometriosis, for example, is absolutely appalling compared to other health conditions, and yet it affects half of the can potentially affect half of the population. So these are, I think there are a lot of incredible women out there that are going, actually, this is not okay, and starting to do that work, and it's catching up super quick. So I think from a women's health perspective, it's a fantastic time.
And you are a pioneer in this kind of initiative because you're a co-founder of the Wellness Access Institute. Can you tell me about this organization and what your charter is and what you hope to achieve?
Yeah, so two things. One is about how do we stimulate conversations around preventative wellness. Like you go into a supermarket today, and really we need to be doing better than having aisles of sugar, and just these are things that are fundamentally bad for our health. And the government might not be paying much for it now, but they sure as heck are paying for it later as we get sicker sooner. So we really need to work better on just the core basic things that help us be healthy. So part of the why Wellness Access Institute is to create conversations around that, maybe craft some policy or some behavioral change with these core things that we can do so much better. And it's not rocket science, and we need to start talking about this and help parents help their kids be the next healthiest generation. So part of it's that, and then the other side of it is there are so many interesting things that are happening in wellness right now that can take way too long to get to us. So an example of this is, or even NMN, which is like a really interesting product, which has taken like 10 years really to get some sort of traction. The purpose of this why is also to go, how do we accelerate science to society? How do we identify what molecules and supplements and treatments and protocols have really clear benefit, and they don't languish out there for 10 years before someone notices them or they get some sort of traction. So we really want to work with researchers and scientists to get these discoveries into people, into their hands, into their awareness much, much faster.
And do you publish the results? Is this something that the public can access and benefit from and learn from, or is this more of an incubator policy think tank?
Yeah, so it's all of the above. We only started 6 months ago. So what we're doing right now is building out our science advisory board. We've got some incredible researchers and scientists that are working with us because they like us, very mission based and looking to help people. And so we've got a white paper that will come out in a couple of months, starting to look at what our purpose is, our charter, and all the people that we're working with. And we'll just see. This is really one of these things where we start out, we don't know where, quite where we're going. We know where we want to be, but I'm sure it's going to zigzag, but we're there for the journey. And ultimately it's about how do we keep people healthier for longer. And again, back to that 2050 number of 2 billion of us being over the age of 60. I think it's 60% of people over the age of 65 have multiple health conditions. So we need to do better than that. And we can do better than that. And it's preventable if we do some really basic things. So that's what it's about.
I want to go back to talking about the hallmarks of aging, which you discuss in your book. So the current book is the 9 hallmarks of aging, and you've added to it. Can you share with us the hallmarks of aging? And I guess going back to what you said is you use this as the springboard for developing your products and companies, because if these are the hallmarks of aging, then these are the key things that we need to be addressing.
Yeah, definitely. So the hallmarks are defined as changes to our cells that occur as we age. And it could be that they actually drive aging, or it could be that they're in response to things that have happened in our cells that change. And they're also, so there are 3 criteria. First one is they happen during aging. Second one is you're in the laboratory and you accelerate them. What happens? It accelerates aging. And if you're in the laboratory and you slow it down, what happens? Well, it slows aging. So that's the 3 criteria. And so the core elements of them, there are 9, but I'll just talk about 3 areas because that's easiest. One is your DNA. So it's about how do we keep our DNA in good a shape as possible. As I mentioned before, you put sunscreen on your skin because it's preventing UV damage to your DNA. And you can tell the difference between the back of your hand and your wrist as to, same animal, so to speak, but different skin, and that's because of the damage. And so if you look after your DNA, then you...
The DNA looks after you.
You got it. And, your DNA breaks 100,000 times a day in every single cell in your body. It's a crazy number. It's not a number you need to worry about because your body has really good repair mechanisms that look after it. But as we age, things do break. And so it's about how do we lubricate that process and just keep your DNA in good working order. And you not worry about it. You should be thinking about it in your 20s as to how do you keep your DNA working well. Then it's about energy, and energy is really important because your cell needs energy to do all its jobs. It needs energy to fix what gets broken. It needs energy to take the rubbish out when it needs to. It needs energy just to do its job, heart cell beating or a brain cell thinking. And so our mitochondria are the primary little parts of our cells that deliver energy and they decline in function about 10% a decade from our 30s. So you don't feel it so much in your 30s, but when you wake up in your 40s and 50s, you're not healing as quickly, you're not bouncing out of bed so quickly, perhaps getting a bug a bit easier and not recovering as quickly. So you look after those batteries and they look after you, just look at your DNA. And then lastly, it's about cellular housekeeping. It's like, what are we doing to support the body, lowering the amount of junk in our cells or cells that aren't working properly? And we're really good when we've got lots of energy in those mitochondria. But as we age, things get a little tired and we need a little help with the housekeeping. So that's what you look after in your 50s. And all of these things, of course, you can do by dieting. Diet is a healthy diet and healthy exercise, a little bit of fasting, mindfulness. These are things that don't cost any money that we can do. And then you can then add these interventions of the latest supplements on top and get further benefit.
I think what you were saying is really interesting. You know, the lifestyle things that are free, and every person in this biotechnology space talks about it. You know, they always talk about meditation and reducing cortisol levels as an incredibly useful and immediately beneficial way to, you know, reduce your biological age. They talk about getting good sleep, the ultimate biohack. They talk about reducing caloric intake and fasting. Again, as you said, free. Cold therapy, having a cold shower, proven biohack, fantastic for cellular wellness. They're all free. They're available to absolutely everyone on the planet. And yet they're the ones that are the most hard for people to be compliant with. And so all of us, me included, even though I do these things and exercise and make sure that I'm, you know, following those protocols, I'm also looking for a magic bullet. And if the biotechnology industry is, you know, able to give me something that's going to turbocharge those lifestyle changes, or pick up the slack where I'm not so good in those lifestyle changes, I'm interested. And I think that, you know, it would be false of me to say that I'm not interested, that I'm all about the holistic pathway. I'm curious where you think biotechnology is going. You know, you said before we're about 10 to 15 years away from 80 being the new 40 or 80 being the new 60, let's say, to be more realistic. Where are you excited for in biotechnology?
Okay, I like to think of this as like a jigsaw puzzle, right? Where, you know, you start out with a jigsaw puzzle, and even worse is that there are like certain, you've got to look for those jigsaw pieces, and they're in every room in the house, right? That was what health was like 100 years ago. What is happening right now is that scientists are starting to put this jigsaw together and understand how our cells are working and all of the interrelated systems. And it's complex and it's challenging. But you know what it's like when you get a jigsaw puzzle and you've got half of the puzzle pieces together, and all of a sudden it gets a whole bunch easier because it gets faster and faster and faster until you figure out the whole puzzle. We're getting really close to figuring out what that jigsaw puzzle is, and really understanding how our cells operate and the different systems and interactions that they are. And yes, it's complex, but we've got lovely tools like machine learning and artificial intelligence, which are now working beside us on it. So, you know, thanks to the work of people like David Sinclair and other people out there, we are going to get to a point where we fully understand how this works, and also understand what behaviors and interventions we can do as we're young to make sure that we turn up super healthy in our old age, and then have that rejuvenation occur. And you know, it's feasible that the work that David Sinclair is doing, but also some of the genetic engineering that's happening out there, combining all of that, are going to mean that we could easily be 200, 300, 400 years old eventually. And that might sound crazy, but you know, there are mammals living, like the bowhead whale, which lived to 200-300 years. They've got the same biology. You know, we're all the same. They've just got something that we don't understand just yet that's causing them to live a whole bunch longer. And so we will learn what that is. And as soon as we understand it, we can implement that into our biology. And it's going to radically change how our health span, which can be, you know, the amount of time that we're healthy, and in increasing our health span, we'll increase our lifespan. So it's just going to be really interesting. I'd say 10, 15, 20 years from now, health is going to be a lot different to what we are experiencing today.
Oh, I'm so excited for it. I'm excited for my daughter. You know, I was a 36-year-old first-time mum, and, you know, my mum was 20 when she had me. So I've enjoyed having a young mum for a long time, and hopefully for many, many decades to come. And same with my father, who's young, you know, he was in his late 20s when I was born. And I've had the pleasure of having a young, both in age and in thought and everything, of parents. And I'm hoping that all of this biotechnology is going to catch up, so that, you know, when Lily is older, I can feel fit, young, vibrant, of, mentally sound mind, because obviously the conversation around dementia is a whole conversation unto itself. But yeah, it's exciting. The pathway is exciting.
Yeah, and it's not science fiction. It sounds, and look, I'll have conversations where I'm talking and I have to calibrate everybody to say, well, we think what we've got right now is normal, and it's really hard to imagine what it's like to extend our health span and lifespan radically. But, if we went back in time 100 years, people were living so differently and living much shorter lives, and had a much shorter health span. And so for them 100 years ago, how we're living would be just as foreign, right? So it's once we understand that, we can set the scene for understanding what's coming ahead of us. And we may be the first generation of humans, you and I, in our 50s or nearly, that will experience radical longevity. And it could be that we are in the termed longevity escape velocity, where we may just hang around for a whole bunch longer. And time will tell, of course, and as usual, things are much more complex than what we think, and the more we understand, the less we know. But I'm relatively confident it's within our grasp.
Well, I think radical longevity is going to be my new t-shirt. I love it. It's positive and it's exciting. And I want to thank you so much, Greg, for being on the show. This was truly one of my favorite conversations. So many topics covered, and the work that you're doing in this space is incredible, exemplary, and really exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited by heart. It's a great opportunity to make a difference and to help people and raise consciousness so that we can all be aging a whole lot better than we are now.
Yes, please. Lovely to see you.
Likewise.